Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. For today's Deep Dive, we're going to be looking at real estate in Canada.
Definitely a hot topic these
It
days.
really is. And we've got so much to unpack today.
Yeah, we do.
We've got a whole stack of articles here, um, news stories, market analyses,
Mm-hmm.
court cases,
Mm-hmm.
even all about the Canadian real estate market.
And it's important stuff because whether you're a homeowner, a renter, or you're just thinking about getting into the market,
Yeah,
this information is for you.
absolutely. So to kick things off, I thought we could start with this article from the Zoocasa blog about common home buying mistakes.
Always a good place to start.
Right, like you wouldn't buy a used car without checking under the hood first.
Exactly. You got to know what you're getting into.
Exactly. And the article really emphasizes the importance of doing your research.
Absolutely.
Like, for example, not skipping the home inspection,
So important.
which seems obvious, but
You would be surprised.
apparently it's a mistake people make.
More often than you'd think. And you know what else the article emphasizes?
What's that?
The value of a good real estate agent.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They're not just there to find you a house, right?
Right.
They can help you navigate all the negotiations. They understand all the legal complexities.
This can be so complicated.
It really can be, and they can help you avoid those costly mistakes that could really trip you up.
Yeah, this actually reminds me of this other article that we have here from CTV News
Okay.
about a court case in Vancouver.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So this case involves a duplex, multiple mortgages,
Oh, my goodness.
and this thing called a vesting order.
A vesting order.
Yeah, have you heard of this?
I have. It's basically a court order that clarifies ownership of a property.
Right, so it's like a legal document that says who owns what.
Exactly.
But even with this vesting order, things still went sideways.
Is that right?
Yeah, this case ended up with 3 different people, or I guess parties, trying to foreclose on this one property
Oh, no.
with millions of dollars on the line.
millions.
Millions.
Right.
Just because the people involved, they didn't really understand all the ins and outs of the property title.
You see, this is exactly why you need an expert in your corner, someone who can look at all those details
Yeah.
and figure out if there are any potential problems before you're stuck with a $1 million headache.
Absolutely makes you think twice about skipping out on professional help.
For sure.
So we've talked about some of the individual challenges, but let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture.
Okay.
The Canadian housing crisis.
Yeah,
It's a hot topic.
it is.
And there's this article here from Canadian Mortgage Professional that I found really interesting.
Okay.
They're arguing that it's about more than just supply and demand.
Which is interesting because you hear that a lot, right?
All the time.
We need more supply, we need
Yeah.
more supply, but they're saying it's more nuanced than that.
Exactly. And they bring up a really thought-provoking point.
Okay, what's that?
They're asking, are we treating housing as a wealth-building tool or as a basic human right?
Ooh, that is a good question.
Right, because like the more we lean towards that investment mindset, the harder it becomes for a lot of Canadians to actually afford a place to live.
That's a really good point because if everyone sees housing as just another investment opportunity, then the prices are just going to keep going up.
Exactly. And then you add in all these investors who are scooping up multiple properties.
Yeah. Right.
And it just prices regular people out of the market.
It's like the whole purpose of housing is getting lost somewhere.
Right. Like it shouldn't just be about making money. It should be about having a safe and affordable place to live.
I couldn't agree more.
And this article actually mentioned that in some provinces, like a fifth of all properties are owned by investors.
Wow, 1 in 5. That's a lot.
It's huge.
Mm.
And it just makes me wonder,
Yeah.
is homeownership becoming more of a privilege than a right these days?
It's a question worth asking for sure.
It really is. And it's something that I think we need to be talking about more as a society.
Absolutely. We need to decide what kind of future we want to build.
Exactly. And who gets to be a part of it.
Ex-
And it's not just homeowners who are facing challenges in this market.
Right.
Renters are feeling the squeeze too.
Absolutely.
We actually have this article here from Global News about a woman in BC who was evicted
Oh, no.
after she declined a voluntary rent increase.
Voluntary?
Yeah.
Where
What's
it's-
that in writing?
Yeah, it's like how voluntary can it be if refusing means you lose your home, right?
It's a really tough situation, and it highlights the power imbalance
Yeah,
that can exist between landlords and tenants.
absolutely. Especially in a market like this where affordable rentals are so hard to come by.
Right. You almost feel like you have to take whatever you can get.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what are your rights as a renter?
That's the key right there.
Right. Like, how much can a landlord actually raise the rent? Are there any limits?
Absolutely, there are limits.
Wait.
Landlords can't just charge whatever they want,
Okay, that's good to know.
but it varies by province.
Oh, of course.
And the rules can be complicated, right? So how do you even find out, like, what your rights are as a renter?
Well, there are resources available like tenant advocacy groups,
Okay.
government websites that can provide information specific to your province or territory.
Okay, so it's really important to do your research
It is.
and to know what your rights are before you sign on that dotted line.
Exactly. Because knowledge is power in these situations.
Absolutely. So we've talked about renters, we've talked about homeowners, but what about investors?
Yes, the investors.
Because they play a big role in the market too.
They do, and their decisions can have a ripple effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's take a look at some of the factors that are influencing investment decisions these days.
Okay, sounds good.
For starters, we have interest rates.
Ah, yes, the interest rate roller coaster.
Right. It's been up and down and all over the place lately.
It has been a bit wild, hasn't it?
And we actually have this article here from Real Estate Magazine that talks about
Okay.
how interest rate cuts could impact first-time home buyers.
Interesting, because conventional wisdom says that lower rates should make it easier to buy a home, right?
Right, because you're paying less interest on your mortgage.
Exactly.
But this article is saying it's not that simple.
Oh, how so?
Well, they're arguing that lower rates could actually lead to higher home prices.
Really? Why would that be?
Because when interest rates are lower, more people can qualify for a mortgage.
Right.
So you have more buyers competing for the same number of properties.
Ah, I see. So it's like supply and demand all over again,
Exactly. Increased demand can drive up prices.
which could end up negating the positive effects of those lower interest rates.
Exactly. So it's like this weird double-edged sword.
It really is, and it makes it tough for those first-time buyers.
It really does.
But-
So it's not as simple as just looking at the interest rate.
No, it's not. You have to look at the bigger picture.
Exactly. You have to consider the overall market conditions, the inventory of available homes, and how all of these factors are interacting with each other.
It's like a giant puzzle, isn't it?
It really is. And speaking of puzzles, this article from Business in Vancouver is about mortgage fraud.
Oh, no.
And it's a reminder that
I have.
even seasoned real estate professionals
Okay.
can fall prey to scams.
Wow. That's scary.
It is. Apparently, this case involved an unregistered mortgage broker.
Unregistered.
Yeah, so not exactly on the up and up.
Oh, boy. Red flags everywhere.
Right. And it just highlights the importance of doing your due diligence.
Absolutely.
Like, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
Check credentials. Do your research.
Especially when you're talking about something as important as a mortgage.
Exactly. Because this is a big decision.
Huge.
And you want to make sure that you're working with someone you can trust.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about renters, we've talked about homeowners, we've talked about investors. But what about the bigger picture?
Okay.
What does the future hold for Canadian housing?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
Because we've got all these forces at play.
Rising interest rates.
Increasing investor activity.
An affordability crisis.
It's a lot to unpack.
So we've talked about the challenges, but what about potential solutions? I mean, are there any bright spots on the horizon?
Well, there are people trying to come up with creative solutions, that's for sure.
Like what?
Well, one idea that's been floated is a tax on vacant land.
A tax on vacant land.
Yeah, so like if you own a property and you're just sitting on it, you're not developing it, you'd have to pay an extra tax.
Huh. And that's supposed to help how?
The idea is that it would discourage land hoarding
Okay.
and incentivize developers to actually build affordable housing.
So it's like a way to increase the supply of housing.
Exactly.
Interesting. But I don't know. Feels like that might be a tough sell.
Yeah, it could be politically challenging.
And even if it does get passed, I mean, will it really be enough to solve the problem?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. Because like we've been talking about, it's not just about building more houses, it's about changing the way we think about housing. Exactly. We need to move away from this idea of housing as a commodity.
Right. It shouldn't just be about making a profit. It should be about creating communities and providing people with safe and affordable places to live.
Couldn't agree more, and I think we're starting to see a shift in that direction.
Really? How so?
Well, for example, there's a growing movement towards more sustainable and community-focused housing developments.
Oh, yeah, like co-housing and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of interest in innovative building techniques and
So
materials.
it's like we're trying to rethink the whole system.
Exactly. We're challenging the status quo and exploring new possibilities.
That's encouraging to hear.
It is. And I think it's important to remember that the future of housing isn't predetermined.
Yeah, okay.
It's something that we create through our choices and our actions.
So what can people do? I mean, if they're feeling overwhelmed by all of this.
Well, first of all, don't give up hope.
Okay.
There are people working hard to make a difference, and every little bit helps.
So what you're saying is don't just sit on the sidelines.
Exactly. Get involved. Educate yourself.
Yeah.
Support organizations that are fighting for affordable housing.
So it's about being informed and engaged.
Absolutely. And remember that whether you're a homeowner, a renter, an investor, or just a concerned citizen, you have a voice in this conversation.
That's a powerful message.
It is, and it's something I truly believe in. We all have a role to play in shaping the future of our communities.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Canadian real estate market,
Yeah.
what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
I think the key takeaway is this knowledge is power. The more you understand about the forces that are shaping the market,
Right.
the better equipped you'll be to make informed decisions for yourself and your family.
Absolutely. So do your research, stay curious, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive for today.
This was a great discussion.
It really was. Thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you next time.